You're putting in effort, trying to grow, trying to get better. But if your internal world is remaining unchecked, it will override everything you're trying to build. Hi there. Welcome back to the channel if you've already been here. But if you're new, my name is Ashley. I'm a mental health expert and I help Christians heal their anxiety using Christ-centered neuroscience without the typical just pray more advice. Now, I know how important it is to feel confident in yourself while healing. So let's walk through 3 ways that you can regain control over internal threats. Before I do that, let me give you some context. What are these internal threats? Internal threats are the patterns inside of you that have typically been used to survive your experiences. They are the invisible thoughts, habits, and patterns that quietly control your life. It is how you are responding to situations. They usually come from adaptations. These are the things established throughout your childhood that helped you get through your experiences, and they carry on well into adulthood. Whatever coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms that we had as a child tend to show up in how we're responding to regular life situations, stressors, difficulties, challenges. Even the way that we view ourselves and the way that we fit into this world is very much influenced by our adaptations. What actually creates the internal experience for you is the interpretation of events, expectation, anticipation of danger, the body's learned stress response, the mental patterns running in the background, and beliefs. This is why 2 people can be in the same situation and have 2 different internal experiences. For some of you, anxiety has been what has gotten you through your experiences. It has been the defense mechanism, the adaptation that you have developed over time, either because of your own experiences or sometimes you learn this from your family. So if you have anxiety, think about, is there anyone in your life that modeled that anxiety habit? We all have to do our due diligence and reevaluate our adaptations, because that is what's unconsciously playing out day in and day out. So you really want to think about the things that follow you from place to place, from person to person, from situation to situation. As the definition says, these things really do quietly control our lives. Most of us are either not willing to admit it, or we are really just that unaware of it. This is very important to address because you can't run away from what's inside of you. You can try, but you can't. And that's what makes them so difficult, because these are things that you probably say, I don't want to do this anymore, but it keeps happening. So you have the desire, but it's not actually translating into your behavior and actions. And so you say, oh, I want to stop overthinking. And then the situation comes up and you start overthinking. You could feel really bad about yourself in those situations, because it's like, oh, I didn't want to do this, but I'm doing this. And it's very frustrating, and it causes a lot of grief for many people. Remember, your brain is designed to keep you safe, not successful. So even if you're trying to make this positive change in your life, the brain is more interested in, are we safe, than are we successful at making this change? It doesn't care about the success of the change. That is why the brain will avoid risk or reject change or discomfort. And it's because the brain loves safety and comfort. And a lot of times we get a sense of safety within our comfort zones. And we know that growth and positive changes require going outside of your comfort zone. So as you are facing these internal threats, you will notice this natural pull and tug that you will experience inside. There will be tension there, because the brain is trying to keep you in comfort, and you know the growth and results and the change that you want to see requires discomfort. So if you experience that, it's actually a good sign, because that means you're challenging your body to pivot and embrace a new way of doing things. And that is going to then get you the results and progress that you so desire to see. You don't solve them by escaping or curating your environment or changing the things around you. You solve them by changing your relationship to the internal responses itself. So, when we are talking about healing from anxiety, we cannot just address the problem, we are also addressing what creates the problem. We have to get to the root of why am I continually having this pattern and response. Once you have that insight, then you can start to identify these and become more aware of them. That's the first step to working on them, is knowing that they even exist. So really, this is a personal process because we have to learn what your story is in order to be able to help you to see the progress. If you try to do this in a one-size-fits-all approach, it will not be as successful, lead to transformation, and be as meaningful for that person. The question isn't just what's happening to me. The question is, what is happening within me that is then causing this to become a threat? We are not just trying to do surface level fixes, because surface level fixes will only lead to surface level results. That will discourage you in the healing journey. You will just want to quit and say, what's the point? This is not working. So I'm just not going to do it anymore. One of the biggest internal threats that I see many people dealing with is self-doubt. So it's that inner critic that tells you negative things about yourself. The voice in your head is saying, you're not ready. You can't do that. You're not good enough. It sounds like you, but it's not the truth. It's just fear trying to sound logical. And for many of us, the self-doubt protected us in situations so that we were seen, but not too seen. You don't want people to see your failures, the mistakes, the imperfections, the vulnerabilities, and the struggles that you have. So we will hide, and self-doubt just says, don't even try. There's a risk for them to see all of you. And that's too scary. So let's not do it. And that will keep people from trying, pursuing goals, growth, getting help, following God's instructions, and being obedient. That can interfere with advancement and promotion in life. These things can be used spiritually to discourage you, to have you thinking that you are powerless, to have you thinking very small about yourself and very small about your God. This can have you then look at God in a way that is not even accurate. That's what we're facing here. Sometimes we get so comfortable accepting that these bad habits exist, we're not even prioritizing what we could do in order to get away from those bad habits. We just reduce it down to, well, this is how it's going to be and I can't do anything about it. That's not true. Habits are learned, which means you can unlearn them and you can learn new ones. So then the question becomes, what do you do about a threat that you can't get away from? We know the threat is internal. You can't escape it, you can't avoid it, or you can't fix it externally. So you have to take those three options off the table. So once you do that, is there a strategy there? Most likely no. And if you do have a strategy already, put it in the comments section. I would love to hear what you do to address your internal threats. The strategy has to change completely. We can't approach this like we approach everything else. Instead of elimination, the goal becomes retraining the response. Once you start to deal with your adaptations and your coping mechanisms throughout life, you're going to be able to see way more fruitfulness and progress. So now let me get into the 3 ways that you can regain control over internal threats. Number 1, consistently remind yourself that anxiety and feelings aren't emergencies. Even if they may feel like them, even if it is pressing down on you, it is not automatically an emergency. Anxiety feels urgent. Stress feels urgent. And they trick you into thinking that you need to take immediate action. Some situations are going to require urgency, but in most situations, there is not an immediate action that we can take other than avoiding or escaping, which is why the brain loves those responses. Because this is the thing about anxiety. Urgency is a part of the signal. So every time you experience anxiety, there's going to be this sensation of urgency. Since anxiety creates that signal of urgency, we have to then do our due diligence and take the time and say, is there proof of danger or an actual problem? And most of the time, the answer is no. So you have to learn to ignore that and ask yourself, is there anything that I can do about this today? And you can't just focus on what you could do on the outside. Is there anything that you can do internally to help you in this situation? Can you consider that the way you're thinking about this may not be entirely true? See, a lot of times we're looking for, what can I do externally? What's the urgent, immediate action on the outside? No, pivot back to, what is the action that I can do inside of me? Identifying why something is triggering you can give you that insight to then retrain that internal response. Number 2, reduce secondary fear. Now, one of the most common internal loops looks like you feel anxious, so you start to think, why am I anxious? This shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't be anxious right now. Then you start to think, well, what if this gets worse? What if this stays around? What if I'm like this all day? Now your body is no longer reacting to just the stress or the anxiety of the original issue. You have just created anxiety about the anxiety. As many people come in, a primary root that I have to address is you're anxious about your anxiety. The more fearful you are of your anxiety, the higher your anxiety goes. You have just compounded your anxiety and your fear. Remember how we talked about the anxiety cycle and the anxiety feedback loop? If you haven't seen that video, check it out. This is how people get stuck in a revved up nervous system and a constant anxiety cycle. Then you were anxious for days or years. We have to break that feedback loop, because the more you have the sensation, the more you interpret it as bad, negative, horrible, you will have fear of the sensation. And then it is going to just lead to a stronger sensation. It keeps building it up. It keeps making it bigger. And the harder you try to get rid of it, the more important it becomes to your brain, because your brain starts to interpret the resistance as confirmation that something is indeed wrong. And as we said earlier, anxiety is not always an emergency. So in order to really heal your anxiety, you have to change the interpretation or it won't work. While you're healing, your goal is not to never feel anxious again. The goal is, I can feel this without adding another level of panic on top of it. Basically, I can experience anxiety without making it worse. Number 3, allow and accept the sensation without negotiation. Most of what we do to heal, address, or overcome our anxiety makes it worse. When anxiety shows up, many of us will argue with our body. We say, you shouldn't be here. You're messing things up for me. And we sit there and go back and forth with the feeling, again, making the anxiety worse. You're giving it such strong attention. You are only seeing it as bad. When you stop arguing, and you don't come at it with judgment or shaming it or guilt, you remove power from the loop, not by forcing calm, but by removing the resistance from your interpretation. The more resistance there is, the more anxiety you will feel. I know that may not be what you want to hear, but it's the truth. You have to remove the resistance from your interpretation. You essentially want to give your brain an opportunity to be exposed to a new pattern, because all it knows is the pattern that you're doing. That's what's familiar. That's what's worked in the past. That's what's gotten you through life. So it's going to continue that automatically without your input. The brain is not paying any attention to the fact that you said, I'm going to do it different this time. If there's no new introduction of something it can do, it's going to just pick up the old pattern that you normally do. So you have to actually bring in a new pattern. And so you're essentially telling your nervous system, hey, this is uncomfortable, but not dangerous. I know the situation sucks, but it's not dangerous. This person may be mad at me, but it's okay. So once you start to introduce these follow-up statements, the system is going to learn that pattern. And as it gets accustomed to it, it will start to go for it without as much effort from you. So as we close, I just want to reiterate that you don't always control what shows up internally, but you do influence what it becomes. A sensation can stay a sensation, or it can become a story or a threat. It depends on you. Once you make these 3 shifts, you will be more easily able to redirect attention to reality that interrupts the self-feeding cycle. You are training your internal responses and channeling different approaches so that your internal threats don't continue to dominate. So the way I like to explain this is that whenever you're starting a new habit or you're making a change, it requires a lot of manual effort in the beginning. It takes work. But once you consistently do it, the brain will become accustomed to it, and it will get more comfortable with it, and it will say, oh yeah, we have another pattern, we have another option, we have another habit that we can use. And so it will start to gradually just pick it up and do it automatically for you. When you get to that point, you'll notice that it doesn't require much effort. It will be a much easier experience for you. If you're training a dog or a puppy, in the beginning, you have to be intentional. You have to give them clear instructions. You have to monitor them more closely. You have to sometimes repeat yourself. You have to practice. You have to give a lot of time, attention, and energy to that puppy or dog. You are doing the hard work so that in the future, you'll be able to tell that dog, sit, and it will sit. Most of our suffering comes not from what we feel, but from what we believe the feeling means. The work isn't meant to eliminate your internal threats, but it's to stop turning them into something bigger than they are. They're going to be present, but now you have a way to actually interrupt that pattern and to do something different. This is really about giving you a break from that constant, non-stop anxiety, because it's not good for you to live in that. It takes so much of a toll. So if we can do something about these internal threats and get them in check, you are going to have that transformation you desire. The main difference between people that are successful in their goals and those that aren't is that one did not let their invisible internal threats decide their direction. They have the same doubts, they have the same fears, they got their adaptations, they got their bad habits, but they don't let them run the entire show. A video like this can create the awareness, but deeper transformation often requires deeper support. So if this resonated with you, I got something special I'm opening up for you. And I would personally love to invite you into a unique coaching opportunity through the Unmask, Heal, and Rise Premium Coaching Program. This is a limited time discounted opportunity to work with me more closely one-on-one before we release the full program publicly. I may not offer this one-to-one attention to this degree when we officially launch this. So if that's what you're needing right now, I would encourage you to reach out and connect, so you can really have that personalized support while you're putting in the manual effort to get to the life that you desire to live. And that can be done within the next few months, not years, months. If you'd like to talk it through and hear more details, you can schedule a free chat with me. The link is below in the description. I would love to meet you personally and see what we can make possible for the goals that you want to accomplish. In the meantime, you all take good care of yourselves, start making these shifts, and subscribe to the channel so that you can get notifications. If you have already subscribed, go ahead and share this with a friend, because I know you know someone that is dealing with anxiety. It is all around. Send it out to at least one person and encourage them today that they can also be inspired and encouraged by this video. That's all I have for you today, but I'll see you in the next video.